Good evening, everybody. Council meeting September 6th, 2022 is called to order. We have one of our county commissioners here. I'm going to ask to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, Commissioner Trask. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Thank you. Donna, can you do a roll call, please?
Yes, I will. Councilmember Bode,
Here.
Councilmember Sherman,
Here.
Councilmember Gutierrez,
Here.
Marinesco,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Schmidt,
Here.
Councilmember McDowell,
Present.
and Councilmember Peterson.
Here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does council have any late changes to the agenda or the city manager?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to move the city manager's report from item H on your agenda this evening up to item E and move everything down from there. So it'd be manager's report, at least a portion of it, will be immediately preceding public comment.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anybody have any concerns about that? Nope. All right, okay. Does council members have any boards to share? Or reports? So, all right. Consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as published? So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as published. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, motion carries. All right, we have a presentation tonight. We have two. Amy Cooper, Vice President of the Forest Festival, has an LTAC report to share. Lodging Tax Advisory Committee. Amy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members. I am just here to give you a recap of our 2022 Forest Festival festivities for the LTAC committee and you all. We couldn't do Forest Festival without your support, so we truly, truly appreciate it. This year, we were really excited to be back to normal, and we had Forest Festival, all the festivities as planned. The rain did dampen a little bit of the attendance, but it was still so great to see everybody come out and brave the weather. We're not scared of a little rain around here. So let me give you a little rundown of all of the events. The Goldsboro Creek Run was back downtown this year. They had over 100 runners and walkers. They were excited to be back downtown. The Firefighters Pancake Breakfast fed 327 people. The Paul Bunyan Grand Parade saw 78 entries, which was back to our pre-COVID numbers. We had roughly about 30 vendors between Loop Field and the car show. And we estimate that about 500 people attended the steel logging show. There's a good downpour during that, so we lost a good amount of our attendees about halfway through. The carnival was very well attended. Paradise Amusements was super happy with their location downtown. And we would have surpassed our pre-COVID numbers had the weather cooperated. Instead, we just went right along, came back to the same as we were in 2019. Rockin' the Forest up at OCCU on Saturday, again, pretty rained out, but we had a good core group of people up there listening to music. And then we estimate about 1,000 people came out and saw the fireworks on Saturday night. Always a good time. On Sunday, the 5th, the classic car show, the Shelton Car Show Off saw about 122 cars, about a quarter of what we normally get. So weather definitely was a factor there. But we also had the Kiwanis Duck Race on Sunday and they sold out. Additionally, earlier in the year in May, we held our second annual Royalty, which was a ticketed event over at the Colonial House. Our royalty members were there to greet little girls and boys and moms and grandmas, and it's always a super, super cute event. We are excited to continue that for sure and keep that on our list of things happening for Forest Festival. Our court is continuing to attend festivals on our float. They went to Seafair. They've been to about a half a dozen other festivals in the state, and they will be continuing to do so. They've got a few more coming up. And we're also moving coronation this year to align better with the students' school schedules and to give especially our seniors more of a full year being on court, and coronation's coming up in November. That is all I have to report for now. We are continuing to plan for 2023 and our big 80th anniversary in 2024. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice weekend it was.
Always.
And it wasn't a little bit of rain. There was a
Just a
whole
little.
lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Okay, our next presentation is Public Works Director Jay Harris has a presentation for us about 2023 capital improvement plan.
Okay, it's good to see a big crowd here tonight to learn more about the Public Works projects. This is the draft submittal to finance. This still needs to go through your budgeting process, but these are the projects that Public Works are proposing for next year's budget. I got Brent Armstrong here is going to give the sewer and storm portions of this budget. I'm going to do the street and water. There's 25 slides, okay, so I'm gonna be moving a little quick. And maybe we answer questions at the end, something like that. Okay, here's a few projects that were completed. Everybody ready? Go. Here's a few projects that were completed last year. We got the membrane filters put in at the MBR plant, Park Street overlay, and we purchased a street sweeper. So the first project is $80,000 for Western Gateway. It's likely that's the road project up the street here, Railroad Avenue. It's likely they're going to be paving the project in the spring because of winter conditions will come up. And we want to put a little bit more money in for an inflation contingency for pavement and oil prices going up. And WASDOT has a process for that. Local road safety plan. This is Ken Gill, our city engineer, went out and got a bunch of money from the state. And we got some crossing improvements that we're doing at various intersections. And thanks to him, it's a 10% city match, bunch of big projects. And so you'll see more of those yellow flashing crossing lights, which mean stop. Somebody's crossing the road, right? So it's a good thing. And they were at intersections where there's been near hits, fatality in one instance, that sort of thing. A railroad crossing removal. So the railroad is no longer that served the community for years. The state actually has a grant process for this, 100%, $400,000 coming from the state to pull these transportation impediments out, which would be a really good project. It's a safety project again. Olympic Highway North, it's getting pretty weathered. People drive that very frequently, very busy roadway. You can see from the pictures, I chose sort of some of the worst spots, right? But it's going bad pretty fast. And so when you do a paving project like this, you also have to replace the ADA ramps to standards. So we'll be working on that also at the same time. The goal is to grind and inlay the pavement at the same elevation in the two travel lanes. And then we're going to fog seal the parking areas and the turn lanes, and because they're really not cracked, and then restripe the whole roadway. So we're hoping, we got a TIB grant out right now for that. You'll see it in your budget. If we don't get the grant, the project isn't going to happen. ADA transition plan. We really need this for the city to show where ramps don't exist, where ramps most likely meet current standards. And this helps us in our grant funding. You could check another box saying that you have this plan in place. And so we need a consultant to prepare that for next year. Downtown tree replacement, already spoke to you about that. I wanted to get the project designed next year. I'm doing community outreach and some other things. I want to make sure though, that we have a plan in place that's buildable, get some pricing on it, get some good budgeting, figure out how we're going to fund the project, those sorts of things. Our street fund is pretty stressed right now for dollars. And so getting a good design, coming up with a cost estimate, coming up with a phasing plan, that sort of thing is sort of in the works for next year. Downtown street repairs. This is from Railroad North in the downtown area. And I chose just some panels that were, sunk a little bit. The intersection at Cedar and what Fourth is pretty poor. And so we're budgeting $400,000 to go in and to work on panels, do a little bit of storm drainage work on maybe some really severely lifted sidewalks, put in a few ADA ramps where we can maybe open up 2 blocks or 3 blocks worth of walking. Sort of, we're going to make a list. You'll hear more about what we're doing, right? But $400,000 isn't going to solve all the problems over there, but we're going to try to get the worst of the worst and then continue our investments downtown. Front Street is another project that the street is pretty crumbled. It's lacking width in some locations too. It needs some storm drainage improvements. We're running a project where we're going to grind up the pavement. And then we spoke to the county, and as we get with them really early in the year, they said they'll bring their paver out and help us pave. This will be the first time we've really run their paving machine. And so we've been talking to them, and hopefully they're available, and we can get them over to do that. Hopefully we can take the 150,000 and maybe stretch it up some of the side streets a little bit too. Wallace Neal and overlay. So the goal was to get Brockdale going this year. We're late on it. We can't get the state to approve our construction plans. It looks like it's going to be constructed in springtime. It's likely we're going to get this design next year. Probably get it to bid, but if not, it will go into the 2024 paving season. And this is working with federal dollars through the county. And some of the county funding that's available based on population. Traffic signal updates that we want to go and review all the signals that the city owns and maintains. The controllers are very, very old. The heads are in pretty good shape, but we do need to go around and look at the boxes and then try to add some capacity with new controllers at the intersections. We were looking at like Wallace Neal and Shelton Springs, having a dedicated left turn arrow there, and maybe even one of the flashing yellows. It's called a permissive. I don't know if you guys are used to those. We don't have any here at the city, but those sorts of things where we can get people moving a little better in the interim before we maybe get some roundabouts and some other changes at some of these intersections. The maintenance division laydown yard, that's a project that I brought to you folks. The idea is to get in there, get the site cleared, get the fence up, get some lighting, and stage it for a future building in other budget years down the road. The yard we're in right now is inadequate. And then here's some improvements at the yard. Unfortunately, we got to spend some money. We're going to be there for a little while. And so we got some gates. We're putting a new roof on one of the buildings. And the shop bathroom, one of the main bathrooms needs to be completely replaced. On the water, I put a contingency. I hope we don't need this money, but we're waiting on the census meter delivery still, the Texas Instrument chip shortage. I've spoke about that. They're starting to come in. We're starting to get pallets of them. I don't know if the construction cost is going to go up some, because I'd like to still hire someone to put them all in, because we still have 3,500 meters that need to go in. And that cost has gone up. And then I'm worried about a potential vendor, the price increase from the vendor. So more to come on that, but I'm just putting a placeholder in next year's budget for that. Angleside zone, the 500,000 gallon tank up there, only 250,000 gallons is usable. There's houses that are up at the same level as the tank. You got to give them pressure. You only can empty the tank so far. We got to finish the booster station project, and we're going to create a higher pressure zone for that a good part of the city. A lot of new development that will use that. There's also a second tank that goes in that Angleside zone eventually to complete that for the future development, to come in the next 10 years or so. A well one to high school tank project. This project is going to bid hopefully in the next 6-8 weeks. We are at 80% on the plans. We should be getting 90+% plans here in the next couple of weeks for staff to review. We're going to release this to bid. Right now, we're still within the project budget that was originally defined. This is simply last year's budget. I put $1 million in there. It's a $2 million project. I didn't put a 2, I put a 1. We have the money from the state, from the legislature on it. I'm just bringing the rest of the money into next year so we can hopefully spend it. Water reservoir study. We have in our water master plan a lot of small reservoirs. This city is going to be growing. What I want to look at is the potential of taking something like the high school tank offline that's in need of maintenance and recoatings. Maybe take that money instead and invest in a larger tank. Take those dollars that comes offline, invest in more gallons at a bigger tank. And then also the potential of bringing some of the port reservoirs in. It's an idea. I've just been talking to them about it. We need a system analysis. We need to know what some of their elevations are, that sort of thing, to see what a system looks like 20 years, 10 years from now. Look out a little farther. We got a lot of small tanks. We need to invest in a few bigger tanks down the road. And so we got to identify that. And this is storm drainage, and I have Brent here. Yeah.
Okay. This is our Bonnie Glen, our only smallest storm pump station, and it's at the end of the cul-de-sac that when it rains, everything flows down there, overwhelms the system. It's got some poor electrical that needs to be upgraded. And probably a pump replaced in it. Next is the satellite reclaim tank. We have the money for this, and we are going to start design, and hopefully it will be online shortly because we can hook in the correction center, who is going to be using our reclaim probably within a couple months. Front Street pipe overflow. This is the old gravity line that went underneath Goldsboro Creek. And right now it acts as overflow for when we do maintenance on either pump station. Neyland Park can still go through that, but it was a project that was in the works quite a few years ago, but it got taken back burner because the tribe and Fish and Wildlife wanted to do a bunch of projects out in the bay first. But now that they have those done, they're back looking at getting this taken through. The MBR plant, we received some good money from direct appropriations, and we are going to be using just the first 400,000 to get design going, and this will help with our current status of the screens there and increase capacity. This is the first kind of step. We have to increase the capacity of everything coming into the plant before we can upgrade the behind and really get capacity so more users can hook up. Camera van, that is our old camera van, and it is from 1992. They have came a long ways. They have new transit vans that are smaller. they can do smaller lines, they can get into tighter areas, and we can start our phase 2 permit inspection of our storm facilities as well as our sewer, so we can cut down on I&I. And asphalt patch truck. This is, some of you may have seen this, the old one on the left there going around town, and couple people out there patching holes. He can only do it in fair weather now. With this new one, it's designed everything on it. The ones that we've been looking at, the county just purchased one, and they are all inclusive. They have tack, the compactors and everything right on that truck, so we can do more permanent patches. And then there's a couple of public works pickups, one for the water and one for M&R. We have some 04 pickups that we would like to replace. And with the ones that we're replacing, it's either if there's a need in another department or surplus. Our sewer force main inspection. This runs from Front Street Pump Station down the railroad tracks over the pipe bridge that was in one of the other slides and connects in with Nealon, and it runs down the railroad tracks and feeds the main plant. It's had some work done it with some plant upgrades as far as blow offs and stuff like that, but I've never witnessed an inspection report on us, and we don't have any backup line there. So we're gonna get that inspected. The next one on this same slide is Basin 4 sewer I&I reduction project. Basin 4 is up on the Hillcrest side of town, and we've done most of that area. This will be the final piece to that area. And the ground there doesn't infiltrate really well, so you get a lot of I&I through that project. And then the biosolids treatment and management report. Biosolids, we have continually to evolve our biosolid system, taking on outside customers and producing Class B and Class A biosolids with them. And the technology is so new that it's changing all of the time. So we're going to try and make sure that we stay up to date with current technology and ways of doing things. And that is the last one.
Brent, what's I&I?
Infiltration and inflow, the rainwater and stormwater getting in through cracks of the sewer pipes, and as well as catching downspouts that should not be connected in, or storm drains that should not be connected in, that adds flow. Our flow goes from 1 million gallons in summer to sometimes 12 in the winter when it's raining really hard. So anything we can do to eliminate that gains us capacity for new users to connect and helps us stay within permit. So.
Great. Does anyone have any questions?
I have one.
Yes.
Jay, when you work on the lay down yard on Mountain View, is it gonna, once you get the ground already blacktop, whatever you have to do? Is there any of the equipment that's gonna be able to be put up there until buildings are built? Or are you gonna put temporary buildings up there? Or what are you gonna do?
We're gonna, the plan is to move pipe up there, gravel, that sort of thing, manholes, but no equipment will be there until people are there.
Okay, all right.
Any other questions?
I'd just like to point out that one of the council's priorities is to proactively maintain our infrastructure. And these projects are the way that we're able to do that. That ultimately saves money in the long run. Running 18-year-old vehicles, or what was the 1992? I mean, nothing's changed much in 30 years. So it's
Camera technology.
especially camera technology. So these are the ways that we can use our public resources in a way that's most cost effective long-term for the city of Shaw.
Right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. All right. Okay, Jeff, city manager report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of council. There's a couple of things I wanted to go over tonight. And one of those, the first one is what I perceive to be and what I think others perceive to be a significant piece of misinformation about the outdoor homeless encampment ordinance that council adopted on August 2nd. So the first part of that, that ordinance, as I've said in many public hearings, but I want to say again, because I really think that it's important for us to be clear about what we're doing. The first part of that is that ordinance was not new. It was an update of a 2015 ordinance. So those types of encampments were already permitted in the city limits with criteria. But what the ordinance did that council adopted on August 2nd was strengthen the criteria surrounding those homeless encampment opportunities. Secondly, not available on individuals' private property. It says right on the very first page of the ordinance that it requires a host and that a community organization must be the host, and community organization is also defined on the second page of that ordinance. So all the information is there, but I wanted to be able to say clearly what that information was. One of the last things that that ordinance did, among many other things, is identify camping on private property as a public health issue and identified it as a nuisance, which allows our code enforcement officers to actually address the concern. And I know there's a lot of people in the community that have had concerns about homeless encampments. And this is one of the ways that the council has an opportunity to address those concerns. And you have done that. And I'm afraid that because there is some misinformation in the community, there is not clarity about what you're attempting to do. So I wanted to make sure that I highlighted that for everybody this evening again. Let's see here. Second thing I wanted to talk about is just homelessness in general. As council knows, and as Mayor Inesco and Councilmember Gutierrez sit on the homelessness task force, as well as one of our guests tonight, Commissioner Trask from the county, the city is doing everything that we can to address the homeless concerns in our community. There are 2 more meetings left. One, the next meeting is scheduled for September 20th, and that is going to be a presentation to the Homelessness Task Force Committee from a community not too far away from us that's been successful, relatively successful in addressing this issue, and that's from Jefferson County. And we'll have a county commissioner here from Jefferson County to talk to our homeless task force about what's worked for them and learn lessons from what other people have done. If there's something that they could have done better, and point that out, we'll try to do it better. As I often tell the staff, the team here, make new mistakes, try something new. Let's do something, but let's not repeat the same mistakes over and over and over. So then the next meeting is October 11th, and that is scheduled to be the last meeting of that group because I didn't want this to go on forever with no final resolution. What I hope to have happen at that meeting of the task force is that we have between 5 and 8 recommendations for council to consider, and we'll certainly share those recommendations with our county partners. 2 recommendations as an example, short term, what can we do in the short term or more? 2 that we can do in the intermediate term, and 2 that we can do in the long term. And that's how to address homelessness in our community over time. That meeting's on October 11th. Also on October 11th in the evening, we will be hosting a Spotlight Shelton event with the entire community, and we've invited our community partners, including nonprofit partners, to present how homelessness affects us, but also what we're doing to help and what we need to do better to more effectively address homelessness in our community. And I hope everybody attends that. I've encouraged all members of the Homelessness Task Force to attend so they can talk to community members about what we are looking at doing, kind of field test those ideas, what's happening, and to update our community on what's happening. So the key to all of this, though, is accountability. We want to provide services for the people that want help. We want to provide opportunities for folks. And the council has looked at several of those ideas. One of them being a mitigation site, which is an item that the homelessness task force is talking about. Another one being additional opportunities for affordable housing in our community, because if you create a mitigation site, but then provide no opportunity for the next step up, all you're going to have is an ever expanding mitigation site. You have to have those stepped opportunities in order to really address the issue that we see in our community and has been mentioned in public comments several times, communities around the country. There is a way to solve this and we know how to do it. We just need to vet it so that we make sure the most appropriate solutions for Shelton come from Shelton. Another issue with the accountability piece, and many of our most vocal critics have been told this in private many times in public forums like the Homelessness Task Force group, is accountability. And unfortunately, we don't have the opportunity at this point to ensure that accountability. We have a significant lack of jail space in our community. It's no one's fault, really. I know that Mason County and the Mason County Sheriff's Office is trying incredibly hard to make that happen. However, their staffing concerns are a big problem. COVID is also a big problem. We are able to get people into jail as long as they meet the booking restrictions, which is, get a little bit technical, A or a B felony. And basically those are crimes against people, right? And those are the people that you really want there. So it's understandable that there's a prioritization aspect of that. But that turns into this council looking at ordinances, adopting ordinances, and then unfortunately not having, you have to have a carrot and a stick. And we have carrots, we don't really have a stick. So we're working with our partners at Mason County to provide that. But there will be a significant cost associated with it. There is no doubt about that. And we know roughly what that will look like. But we want to do everything we can do within our available resources to address the issue. I am concerned that if we don't use the available resources we have, that this problem, there will not be a resolution to the issue. And resources, I'll be quite frank, it's, you know, I won't talk in high-minded, you know, it's money. That's what is needed. It's right now what we're looking at for 2023 is to hold 20 people in an offsite facility. It will cost us approximately $1 million. And that all comes out of the general fund. All comes out of the place that most of the government services that you see, not the capital improvement project. So the crosswalks that Jay and Brett were talking about will still get done. Most of that comes out of the general fund. That comes from our permitting department, our finance department, our HR and risk services department. That's where that money comes from. And there's a infinite amount of resources. I know that Mason County and the Mason County Sheriff's Office is doing everything they can, and it's up to all of us, I think, to help them find solutions for that issue. But just as an anecdote, and I'll tell one really quickly, and it's by no means the only thing that's happened. There was a lady about 2 weeks ago that was pulled over on her way into Shelton. She had 5 warrants, 5. And when the officer called to see if that individual could be booked into jail, they were told no, there is no space. So we let a lady with 5, we had to let a lady with 5 warrants go. That is very unfortunate. And again, you know, looking for solutions, looking for offsite solutions. Every community in this state is dealing with a similar issue. So, you know, I know that this is public information. I know it's been told to individuals that have been critical of this council, both in private on numerous occasions and in public, because I've been there for that, what the issue is. And there is still a concern that the city is doing nothing. Last thing I want to say, and really what prompted this, is recently there have been calls for the resignation of our police chief because she is doing nothing. And I will say right here and now that the police chief and every other member of this team is doing what I ask them to do. So if there's someone that you would like to go after on Facebook, in person, anywhere else, that would be me. So. That's really all I have to say. I have a couple other items at the very end of this. But I wanted to make sure we get this out early in your meeting this evening, and we can move on with the rest of the agenda. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeff. Anybody have any questions or comments?
It's like a comment. Jeff, I just want to let you know that I fully support your direction on this. I have since we've started. I think we've been working on this ever since all of us have been here. I don't think any one of us is comfortable with the way things are going, right? We all want to see things improve. But I gotta be honest, I think we're quite possibly in the hardest place we can be. It's a small city. We're screwed. We don't have the resources. We don't have the support from higher levels to really make this happen. Yes, we could probably pull off the mitigation site, but as you stated, we don't have the follow-on services. So we get stuck with a tent city for how long, right? And how long can we deal with that, right? Where do we put it in the community? Quite frankly, we've also suggested that in the past, and the community wasn't a good fit. We've suggested affordable housing options, wasn't a good fit. You know, I'm hopeful that the recommendations from the task force will be something that will be a good fit and will be feasible within our budget and within our revenue and resources. The other piece with the jail, I was also pretty upset about the fact that folks in the community are essentially saying that our law enforcement officers aren't doing anything about this. I appreciate Sheriff Fleck being here tonight, and I know he's committed to this as well, in our communications about, you know, jail issues, but I want to be straight up with this. 542 times in the last 18 months, we haven't been able to put somebody in jail because of that problem. City of Shelton pays $21,000 a month for 7 beds in the jail. So it's not a lack of enforcement, it's not a lack of caring. We have some issues we got to work through. They're difficult, they're complex, they're challenging. Sure as hell doesn't happen overnight. That's it. That's where we're at.
And I just want to say, in no way do we blame the sheriff's office or the county for any of this.
Well, the sheriff's office is in the same predicament.
Yes.
It's not just us.
Sometimes worse than our officers.
Yes.
And we recognize that, but it is an issue for everybody. And it's something that we need to figure out how to solve.
Okay.
Again, it's resources. It's money.
And some other cities have more resources. We're the only city in Mason County where the county seat, all the services are here. So we get everything that comes along with it. We don't have Olympia, Lacey, Tumwater, Yelm, all in our county. We have Shelton. So it is, you know, that's why it looks so bad here, is because we're not sharing the resources all over the place as well. And I appreciate you also, Jeff, and Police Chief Beeson.
Yeah.
I think you're all doing a great job, and we'll fix this. I mean, it might not happen overnight, but it's gonna happen. So. Councilmember McDowell.
I just want to let you know, Jeff, that I worked with you since day one when you came, and worked with Carol from day one since she's come. And we behind the scenes see a lot more than out there. And we see how hard you work and the decisions that you have to make, and we are 100%, 110% behind you in your effort. It's a tough one. And we don't have any answers, you know, hopefully we will, but. Anyway, thank you. Now I have a question. On an ordinance where you cannot park a vehicle on a private piece of property and camp in that vehicle, right?
Mhm.
So what do we do when there is a piece of property with a vehicle on it? It's private property. What happens there?
Our code enforcement officers have addressed several of those over the last month and a half, at least 3 that I can think of off the top of my head. First is code enforcement. We want to be proactive. We don't want to come out there and give somebody a ticket immediately. We want to talk to the individual, say, you know, hey, this is a problem. Here are some ways that you might fix it. And then after we provide, you know, that education piece and that, you know, community outreach piece, is when we move a little bit more into the enforcement side, which is, okay, here's a letter where you have a certain amount of time to correct this issue. And then following that, if we're ignored on those steps, then we move into the more proactive enforcement phase, which is a ticket that eventually winds up in this court.
So I took a little I was taken on a ride along on some different pieces of property here in Shelton. And I was absolutely appalled of what they look like and what neighbors have to look at. And I was, like, I was speechless. I suggest getting on a big bulldozer and just bulldozing them down,
Mhm.
but can't do that.
Well, we do have an abatement process, which that ordinance identified. Again, the last house we abated, I believe was on High Street several years ago, and that was a total of about $35,000. Now, we don't, that will be paid back when and if the property's sold, because the lien goes on the property.
Right.
But that's money that the city and the taxpayers have to put out with no timetable for its eventual return, or if it ever will be sold.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Sorry, good conversation. So I'm glad you brought up the property maintenance code enforcement type of issues. I know that our development code committee was kind of cold on a property maintenance ordinance, but I share the same sentiments that Councilmember McDowell does. There's a lot of properties in the community that are in very, very poor shape, and I believe people just have stopped caring, kind of thing, and it's difficult, and it's not just about something in somebody's backyard or the colors of paints peeling or whatever. This is just blatant, disregard and not being a good neighbor. I'm all for looking at different, avenues to address this. I think one challenge is the complaint-based process. I don't know what a healthy balance is there, but I'd like to talk more about it. I'd like to learn more about a property maintenance ordinance. I'd like the development code committee to take another look at that, because, and quite frankly, take a driving tour through town and see how the heck do we address this? I don't really know, because apparently the way our ordinance is written right now, it's not very effective. Mayor Onisco and I have been working on an issue on Washington Street with a resident. We hear daily, weekly about the challenges there, and we know that our staff are doing what they can, but they can only go so far, right? And meanwhile, people living their lives, raising their families are struggling to do that, and in some cases they're leaving, and we don't want that. So thanks for bringing that up.
Welcome, and one
There-
more thing on that is that we don't want to make the city an HOA city.
Right.
But we do want to make it neighborly. You can look over at the person's yard next door and it looks decent.
So sometime in the future, and I don't know exactly when, but we will bring you an item to consider. It's part of the International Building Code. It's just that it's a property maintenance code. So those types of things have already been laid out for us. And then council can consider each section.
One more comment is, I walk my dog every day, twice a day. I see the council members here all the time, say hi and wave. My name, many of you. And I want to say that I actually feel safer in the past few years with Chief Beeson here. And that things have been like environmental design in certain areas. Oh, I'm so glad they limbed up those bushes so I can see what's going on here. And so I just want to congratulate you. I'm walking around waving at everybody and saying, what a beautiful place we live in, and how compared to other places that this is still a very special place to live, and we can make it better. But we have that structural deficiency where homelessness is going up like this, and our funding for it is going like this, or even down, because we had a homeless coordinator and we don't have one anymore. So I'm saying that we as a council and we as a community need to do more and do better. And I want to say that our law enforcement and our city manager and our staff is doing everything they can, and that I'm proud of them, and that I'm really happy to live here in Shelton.
Anyone else?
Emmanuel.
All right. At this time, members of the public are invited to make public comment on any topic that's not listed on the agenda. And it's a shame I have to read this next line, but I'm going to go ahead and read it, but forget some context. 2 weeks ago, one of our speakers was called a derogatory name in these chambers. And that's just really uncalled for. And then several hours later, a council member was pretty much verbally attacked on the street and threatened with bodily harm. What is this coming to? We can do better. We can really do better. We can disagree and not threaten each other and call names to people that have a different opinion than us. But at this time, as a reminder, outbursts from the audience are prohibited. Donna, do anybody interested in making public comment?
We do, Mr. Mayor. The first public comment is from Monty Ritter.
Thank you. My name is Monty Ritter and I live on top of Upper Canyon Creek, which is located between Capitol Hill and Peacock Ridge, where this proposed annexation is going on. About 15 years ago, when Green Diamond tried to do this same thing, the reason it failed was because the fire department didn't like the fact there were only two ways to get into this development. One by what is Olympic College of Shelton and the other out by the Mason County recreational area. I talked to my neighbors up on Capitol Hill, and what I suggested is that we use one of the streets to go across Upper Canyon Creek and connect Capitol Hill to Peacock Ridge. The problem that Peacock Ridge has, with only two ways in and out, is the same thing we have up on Capitol Hill. So by creating an egress for the fire truck to get both ways, it creates the ability for Capitol Hill to develop more than it can right now, and it allows this Peacock Ridge development to move forward, which is kind of nice. Also, there's that waste station, sewer pump station number 9. You guys are getting ready to refurbish that. And if you were to do some work in there, I think that you'd find there's a lot of things you could do with that. When I was on the City of Shelton Citizens Advisory Board about 12 years ago, the most important trail requested by the people in Shelton was a trail that connected the High Climber Stadium with the Mason County recreational area. The other thing is a trail that would connect downtown Shelton alongside the railroad tracks and go up Capitol Hill and connect lower Shelton to the upper Shelton retail core. So if we had this bridge in place, I was in a conversation with Randy Netherland and Mark Ziegler and our US Navy and all the other major property owners, including Green Diamond and Menke. And they agreed that they would let us work on a trail that would put this together. Even our Navy said that we could have access to their road right away along the railroad going up the hill. So if you think about this, if we work this together, if we could use this as a contiguous route, I was talking with Randy Netherland, we could come up with some private donations to help with the matching funds that are required to get something that is not only in the city, but also is out in the county, so that neither the county residents nor the city residents need to take a big hit to the general fund to get this accomplished. We could actually have some private donations to make the match work out. And if this happened, it'd be a good thing for the whole community, and I think make everybody happier. And that's positive. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you.
Our next in person is Dean Jewett.
Morning. I appreciate the time to be here. A lot of the stuff that Jeff was talking about very well could be directly from me, because I am very critical of the city and our police chief and what we have going on downtown. And it's no secret, and I won't be ashamed about admitting it. I'm not happy with what we have going on. And to say that we can't do anything and that our hands are tied, no, I do not agree with that at all. I was having a conversation in the committee meeting, and I made a suggestion, and I was told that, no, that's not going to work. Okay, so when somebody makes a suggestion and somebody says that, no, it's not going to work without even trying it or without even looking at it. And I've also asked that our committee and you guys are given information, like my wife and I both presented, about the no lay lie law and what it does and the different communities that it works in. I have yet to see a response from the email and the multiple requests for that. I think that's fairly rude because there's a lot of other information that gets given out that have to do with increase in taxes and being able to do different things that we want to do for the homeless. We have two different problems here. We have a homeless problem and we have a street druggie vagrant problem. We have to deal with the first one before we deal with the second one. Okay, we have a lot of good people in here and a lot of good organizations that know how to deal with the homeless situation. But what I don't see is anybody dealing with the street problem that we have. This cannot continue to go on for the business people downtown. We pay just as much taxes as everybody else. I have returned no less than 30 shopping carts of my own time and put countless contractor garbage bags away. Okay, why do I have to do that? You know, where's our city in doing that? Why should our city have to do that? What about, Jeff talks about accountability. Okay, what about the accountability for the individuals that are putting that there? How many times do we have to call in on the white pickup truck that gets to drive around and just get a little warning because he moves to a different location? What about the gentleman that turns his generator on in a neighborhood inside of a car? I go, you know, how many times does that guy get a move? How many times do we have to follow the junk heap that follows around that ended up being parked up by the Dollar Tree that had the state patrol, the city police, and the sheriff's office all around it, and multiple times? That truck is severely overloaded and illegal and unsafe. Why is it allowed to continue to go around town? And I'm sorry, I will not go away until we stand up. And these are tough choices and they're not comfortable to make. But this isn't about being comfortable. We have to make these tough decisions. I'm happy that we have Jefferson County coming in. Let's bring some other people in that have got this problem solved. Thank you.
Next, we have Chris Brickert. Good evening, everyone. I'm here representing the Board of Directors and the staff for Community Lifeline, which is the local homeless shelter here. But before I get started, I really want to express how thankful I am for the homeless task force that is working, and I'm hearing positive results about the future. So I'm going to keep my comments tonight to the current issues with Community Lifeline. Most of them have to do with funding and support, but we are actually in dire need of support and of funding. And we have the cold weather coming just around the corner. And what I want to share is that Community Lifeline has been working and operating at a 15-bed capacity due to funding restraints and need for required and appropriate staffing ratios to house a full 35 beds in the facility. Last year, we had freezing weather, so we were allowed to operate under an emergency status, and we were permitted to increase to 54 beds. Beginning in October, which is only a month away, we will be expected to increase the capacity and return to 24/7 services. We simply will not be able to sustain that. I'm very concerned about the sustainability and the future and the immediate needs right now of Community Lifeline. If we are expected to open at these levels and support this financially, right now, today, it just isn't there. We constantly apply for grants. We've even hired a grant writer. We get some, but they're very small amounts these days. I have my own reasons why we may not be getting bigger grants, but it's not the appropriate time and discussion for that right now. But the smaller grants sometimes are taken up by just keeping the building open for utilities. And it's becoming increasingly difficult to get the larger grants. During COVID, we lost many volunteer dinner teams. We had almost every night covered by volunteers that would cook meals, donate the food. 2/3 of those teams went away during COVID, and lots of them have not returned. The meals on an average are about 60 a day, sometimes 70 or 80 a day. So it's another huge expense. We are working currently to recruit more dinner teams. So we're very concerned about our current status. However, I'm hopeful in listening to a lot of the other things that were shared this evening. And those, I will cut this here right now because I had a lot more to say, but I think a lot of hopefulness I heard in Jeff's things that he shared tonight. Thank you.
Next, we have Athena Ayers.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. Just as a side note, I would like to publicly say that I am very pleased with Chief Beeson and our law enforcement and the partnership that we have with them at Community Lifeline. We could not get the support we need for our clients without your guys' support. So I truly appreciate you. I'm here, though, however, to discuss some things that were said in our last council meeting about removing services or access to services from homeless people, and talk about why that would not be a wise decision aside from basic human decency. And that's by some statistics. So according to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, allowing chronically homeless individuals to continue living on the streets costs our community taxpayers an average of $40,000 per year per homeless individual. These costs are accumulated through the pressures against our local resources to keep up with code enforcement, medical emergencies, arrests, community cleanup, and other things amongst that which is connected to homelessness. According to our local point in time count, we currently have 254 people literally homeless living on the streets in Mason County. At an average of $40,000 per year for each of these individuals, that equates to $10,160,000 without supporting housing services. In a report offered by the National Alliance to End Homelessness, these costs are reduced by 49.5% when homeless individuals are placed in supportive housing establishments. The average cost for supportive housing is $12,800 a year. Supportive housing allows for individuals to stabilize their health conditions, resulting in less trips to the ER, freeing up admittance beds from our local hospital. It allows for people to stabilize their mental health and medication regimens. It allows for people to maintain sobriety and truly commit to recovery. It allows for basic needs to be met, cutting back on crime and the pressures against our law enforcement and local jail systems. And it allows for people to have a place to properly care for themselves in the ways of hygiene, so to stop the public urination and defecation on our city streets and sidewalks. In another report from the National Healthcare for Homeless Council in 2019, it was determined that simply being without a home is a dangerous health condition. People experiencing homelessness have higher rates of illness and injury and are reported to die on average 12 years sooner than the general US population. Health conditions amongst the homeless population in comparison to those that are housed show that homeless individuals are 50% more likely to develop hypertension, 35% more likely to experience heart attack, 36% more likely to test positive for hepatitis C, 49% more likely to live with depression and mental health disorders, and finally 58% more likely to experience substance use disorder. While healthcare providers do all they can to mitigate the effects of the streets, no amount of healthcare can substitute for housing. And I'll leave it right there.
And we have Heather Jackson.
Hi, I'm Heather Jackson. I'm here with my daughter Ruby Jackson. We live in Lilywop in Mason County. We moved here back in February of 2021. We had bought property and had a vacation property up here for a few years, and we just fell in love with it, fell in love with the people. And it's like living a fairy tale for us. We really, really love it. Moved here from Texas, so it's quite a change. But we absolutely adore it. The reason I wanted to speak is I wanted to support what you guys have been doing with the homeless. My daughter and I read the article in the Mason County Journal, and it really saddened us and angered us at the same time. Just the lack of empathy and the level of hostility really bothered us. So I just wanted to come and show our support. I grew up poor and I've known a lot of homeless people in my life. Many through no fault of their own. Anything from medical issues, tragedies in the family, sometimes, abuse, mental health and drug issues. But it seems like the general consensus of most people is just to sweep it under the rug. Just keep moving it from place to place. And that really doesn't work. So I think that cutting any services would have a detrimental effect on homelessness. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Eagleson.
I'm gonna say something to people who are angry that enough isn't being done for the homeless. I am on the committee. I've been involved with city council for a long time. We need to be grateful for what we have. If you watch the news, which I don't very often, but I watched the news tonight, and the shootings and the killings and everything that's going on in Seattle. Seattle is now number 97 on the to-go list. Nobody wants to move to Washington. And because they defunded the police, got rid of police, all the fighting, all the shooting, all the killing. We have homeless people. We have people with mental problems. Let's try to understand that the city is trying to do something instead of breaking down the people that are trying to do something, getting mad at them, complaining all the time. Get involved, but don't get angry when things are being done, because there's a process in everything. You just can't say, we want this done, and it's done. That isn't how it works. The government doesn't work that way. Cities don't work that way. I don't know why you expect everybody to be able to snap their fingers and get things done. And when we have a committee that's trying to do something, people keep getting upset and getting angry and saying, there's more to be done. Well, if there's more to be done and you know about it, then you bring it to the committee and you tell the committee that you have a solution. If you don't have a solution, don't get mad at the committee and don't get mad at the council, because everybody's doing everything they can to keep Shelton as best they can. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
And we have one person who wants to make a public comment via Zoom, and that is Colleen Carmichael.
Hi, I'm Colleen Carmichael. I'm the Executive Director for Quixote Communities. We provide permanent supportive housing for homeless people with services. I like to bring statistical and factual information for your consideration. Just so you all know, in the state of Washington, grocery clerks make approximately $34,000 a year in salary. Baristas make approximately $34,000 a year in salary. And retail salespeople make approximately $37,000 a year in salary. A studio apartment is $43,200. So it is not difficult to understand why so many people are struggling right now to stay housed when you have a gap that wide. To Athena's point, she mentioned all the statistics for health markers for people that are unhoused. I want to tell you how that changes when they are housed. Diabetes unhoused is 18%, housed is only 9%. Heart attacks go from 35% to 17%, hypertension 50% to 29%, depression 49% to 8%, and substance use goes from 58% to 16%. I'm telling you this because I know myself and other providers of these services work very hard to provide the support that people need once they get housed. Living on the streets is not a way for people to succeed. And the only way I know that we have been successful with is housing them with supportive services. There is not enough funding for that. However, there are creative and successful ways that we have found that we can do it. And we have been able to continue to build villages from what started as an encampment. So I just wanted you to know that for those of us who are providing the services, whether they be police officers, sheriff, city council, we are really trying with tried and true services and programs that we know work. So the best you can do is to support those of us who are at least trying to make a difference in your community. Thank you.
That is all, Mr. Mayor.
Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak that has not signed up? All right, moving on. There's no business items today. We have action items. Our first action item is resolution to add a contract change to Aspect Consulting contract. Public Works Administrative Manager Brooke Kiltz has our details.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. There has not been any changes to the information that was provided since last meeting. So staff is just requesting the reading of a resolution to authorize the city manager to execute the contract with Aspect Consulting.
Does anybody sign up for public comment, Donna?
No, they didn't, Mr. Mayor.
We have a reading of resolution number 1242-0822.
Resolution number 1242-0822. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Shelton, Washington, authorizing the city manager to approve contract change order number 1 to the C Street Landfill Environmental Cleanup Construction Planning Contract with Aspect Consulting LLC.
Thank you, Donna. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve resolution number 1242-0822 as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 1242-0822 as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Now we have a resolution for an expanded annexation area of Peacock Ridge. Senior planner Jason Dose has information for us. Hi, Jason.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. As you may recall, back in April, you passed a resolution that authorized the proponents of annexing, at that time, about 280 acres into city limits, authorized them to officially petition the city for annexation. So that's the point we're at right now is, are you comfortable with the area? Are you comfortable with them essentially officially moving forward? As they were preparing the final documents to actually submit, the applicant acquired, I guess, an option on an additional 100 acres as identified in the staff report. And that bumps us up to approximately 380 acres that they're looking for approval on to officially apply for annexation. And same as the item before this, nothing's changed since you first heard about this at your last meeting. We are recommending approval of the resolution and allow them to move forward official.
Thank you. Donna, do we have any public comment?
No, we don't.
All right, may we have a reading of resolution 1244-0822.
Resolution number 1244-0822. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Shelton, Washington, accepting a proposed annexation for the Peacock Ridge area pursuant to RCW 35A.14.120.
All right, do we have a motion?
Move to approve resolution number 1244-0822, accepting a proposed annexation petition of the Peacock Ridge area.
Second.
All right, comments or questions? Yes.
So what happens next? Sorry.
What happens next? They being the applicant, formally submits a petition to the city, and we're anticipating they'll use what's referred to as the 60% method, where you get over 60% of the property ownership's value of an area to get on board, sign a petition saying, yes, we want to be part of the city. In this case, it would be 100%, presumably. They would apply, we'd have the application certified by the county, that yes, these represent the actual owners of these properties. And at that point, we can move forward. That's where you would see your typical notice of application going out to the public. We'd hold a public hearing on it, and eventually it'd come before the council to make a final decision.
So then at that point, then those parcels are in the city limits and we have to serve those parcels.
Correct. And currently, all of the parcels in question are undeveloped, vacant property.
Okay.
Yes.
Do we know how much acreage we set aside for park space and trails?
Not yet at this time. I mean, there's not a development proposal, and there's critical areas on the sites. You've got namely Canyon Creek, the headwaters to Canyon Creek, some pretty comprehensive wetlands at the top of that. There's a few wetlands throughout the site, perhaps some slopes. I haven't seen any topographic information, but at a minimum, they would be subject to the resource ordinances. But then we do have some requirements depending on the type of development they do, be it a planned unit development or a subdivision. There's some requirements for parks and open space. Yes.
Will we also have environmental mitigation sites and environmental easements and other things included in this package?
Not for annexation, for development, yes. I mean, in the question of annexation, especially for properties like these that are, they're A, vacant, B, pre-zoned in our comprehensive plan. I mean, that's in the staff report. I didn't say that today, but all these properties are pre-zoned neighborhood residential, essentially residential zoning. What that means is we basically telegraphed in our forward-looking planning documents that someday, one, this would be in city limits, and two, it would be developed with residential type uses. So, I mean, it's when you're pulling in vacant property, there's not really much to review at that point from an environmental standpoint, but certainly at a development standpoint, yes, all of the above.
Do we actually telegraph that? I mean,
We do.
So-
I know we
It's-
just got direct deposit like 10 years
It's
ago.
also, it's also,
Possible.
it's,
4 years ago? Yeah, correct. Kelsey.
That's what the comprehensive plan is intended to do.
Got it. Yeah. Thank you.
my term, not the state term for.
And I would imagine that the egress issues, the gentleman mentioned that would happen down the road.
Oh, correct.
Yeah.
That's, the applicant has been in contact with us, both the original submittal, I believe sometime 06, 08. But then more recently, they've been talking with us, and yes, that's still a very big issue, is fire code as it pertains to the land area and the distances and amounts of access you have for vehicles. I mean, not just from a practical sense, like, of course, you wouldn't want to put all the traffic for a development this big through the intersection at Alpine Way, for example. That would be mind-numbingly poor planning, I think. But there are some requirements for separation for emergency vehicles. For example, if there's some sort of catastrophic event, a huge storm, and let's say North Cliff is impassable, emergency responders need the ability to get in from another direction rather than having to hack through or use loaders to move. Say there's a landslide or something. The theory is you're not going to have multiple points disrupted where you might have one disrupted. That's layman's view of it, not the fire code view of it.
Any other questions? All right. We have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 1244-0822, accepting a proposed annexation petition of the Peacock Ridge area. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. We have another item from Jason. Park vehicle purchase authorization.
Thank you again, Mayor. Standing in for the Parks Director today, as he did for me at the last meeting on the previous item. In this case, pretty straightforward. The Parks Department wants to replace a 1996 Ford F-150 with nearly 100,000 miles with a new Ford F-150. It'd be paid for out of the adopted budget for the Parks District. And we are recommending approval of purchase of the truck.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment, Donna?
No, we don't, Mr. Mayor.
And do we have a motion?
I move to authorize the city manager to sign the purchase order for a 2023 Ford F-150 pickup for the Parks Department.
Second.
All right, comments or questions? This was a budgeted item for 2022.
Correct.
So it's a 2023 Ford? that we're-
Correct.
Okay. miles? Minor, right? It's
Huh? Oh, no, it's brand new.
Okay, all right, okay. That's all I wanted to know.
All right, any other comments or questions? All right, we have a motion to second to authorize city manager Knighton to sign the purchase order for a 2023 Ford F-150 pickup for the Parks Department. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. All right. And Jeff, do you have some more city manager report for us?
Just one final item, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of council. I do want to introduce Jay Hill somewhere. There he is. He is our new community development director, taking over for Mark Ziegler. Jay comes to us with a tremendous amount of experience throughout the state of Washington and Alaska. So both he and I have that in common as well. I really want to thank Mark for the work he's done over the last 4 years. And as he transitions to his passion. So that's a good thing, I think, for everybody to support, and we're very happy to welcome Jay on board. Now we have 2 J's and both their last names start with H, so you can figure, you can guess how it's been going the last couple of days. So welcome, Jay. Welcome.
And thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. There's a lot of really great projects that are coming forward, and you know, from a planning perspective, a lot of potential to do some very cool things for the community. So thank you for having me and for hiring me, and glad to be here. Thanks.
So will this be J1 and J2?
No, he'd be J2. He'd be J2.
We've been
Right,
playing,
right,
we're-
J1 and J2.
we've been playing with that. We haven't settled on that yet.
All right. Council have any new items for discussion? Oh, I'm sorry. Were you done, Jeff?
I am done. Thank you.
Council have any new items? for discussion?
We ask, looking ahead.
No, I'm not done. Excuse me. So we have started doing a new looking ahead feature with Mason Web TV, which I think is a solid communication piece for our community. And I did want to mention at our next study session on the 13th, we will start our first kind of City Hall 101 is how I envision these things looking, talking about people, how you walk through the permit process. What are all the steps involved? Who reviews what, that kind of thing. So people get an understanding. You don't, you know, submit a permit into the black hole of City Hall, and then a couple weeks later, something comes back out. The other item that we'll be talking about is one that council asked for us to take a look at, and that is the homeless outreach coordinator that was funded in the 2020 budget. But unfortunately, that position was filled for about a month before COVID hit, which changed everything. So we'll be talking about that and vetting options. At the next meeting on September 20th, we will have a LTAC report from the chamber and several contracts for council to consider with our government relations contract person, along with our your judge and court security officer. That's all I have. Now I'm done. Thank you.
All right. Now does the council have any items for discussion? Yes.
Just one, no expectation of very detailed answers here, but C Street. So we just approved another amendment with Aspect Consulting. What's sort of can you sort of go through what's coming up next with C Street and what we ideally would be looking at for a timeline on when that is developable land?
Sure. So the 4 acres that needs to be capped will not be developable.
Right.
It sits on a 13-acre parcel. Those 4 acres will need to be capped as discussed in the plan that Ecology had recently approved. And then will need to be fenced and monitored continuously for a period of years, but that period of years is, I don't remember specifically what it is. I can provide that to you if yeah, it'll be my lifetime, I'm sure. But the remaining area, we will be free to work with outside of some buffers, which won't be significant. So there'll be approximately 9 acres available for development there. The next step is to issue bid documents to the construction specs that Ecology had approved. What, a month and a half ago, whatever it was. And we expect to release that bid. Jay, help me, October, something like that, J1. J1, yeah.
So the C Street landfill documents, we're waiting for Miles Resources to give us a release. Their attorney is working up a document. Some of the landfill from the 30s, 40s, or 50s, you can pick, went over the property line, it's on their property. We need right of entry from them. Their attorney's working on that. That's the holdup. We can't release a bid document because I don't have permission to enter a small piece of their property. So that's where the holdup is. We spoke to Miles today and they hope to get us some things to our attorney yet this week. So we're hopeful of that.
So we ought to be releasing the bid for, contractors to take a look at and hopefully bid on after that issue is resolved.
To confirm, we're likely fully funded to do the work, correct?
We have the resources that we expect to handle the contract. We are very concerned about construction costs going up, as we've seen with any number of projects around. So we won't know that 100% certain until we receive the bids back.
Excellent, thank you.
And we're hopeful that Miles Resources is one of the bidders. They're right next door and they got a lot of machinery sitting in there. So we'll see.
Be awesome. Right, thank you, thank you.
Any other new discussion?
Jeff, I just wanted to congratulate you and the staff for maintaining our parks, and we had a beautiful activity last week within the park with everyone involved, and everyone's back out being happy, and part of the environmental design that made that one shady area is gone now. We have a very nice park in Field. And also I want to thank you again for the summer program that went on, the music in the park, and also the movements in the park that you guys brought and you guys executed. And so I wanted to thank you. I want everyone to imagine what a beautiful place, not just imagine, but live the beautiful place that we have here. Wanted to thank Deidre and the Chamber of Commerce for making downtown really beautiful in the Christmas. And I have a 5-year-old friend who's nostalgic for that back. Let's do the same walk we did when it's Christmas time. I said, okay. So I just want to say what a beautiful city we have, and I'm proud to be a city council member here and a resident, and that I love that we are all active in here and specifically engaged. And I just wanted to thank you, and that we have more of that in the future.
Absolutely. We can thank our community partners for the music in the park. That's a great event. And our movies in the park was successful this year. We hope to expand it next year.
And there's a family fun fest going on September 24th. I don't know at Newland Park, but I don't know if that's city council. Oh, no, that's not a city council thing. Am I allowed to bring that up? But it's a fundraiser for Community Lifeline on 24th of September at Newland Park. So please be there. Music, fun, and face painting, and what it's really like to be in a small town and supporting each other. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
And one more thing, Miguel, I appreciate the passion you have for the parks. I always tell Mark, he's heard it for years from me, that a city and a county will flourish if they have parks. And parks are so important, trails, parks, whatever, is one thing that makes cities grow healthy. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Right, anyone else? All right, this meeting is adjourned at, sorry. Our next council meeting will be Tuesday, September 20th at 6 p.m. We also have a study session Tuesday, September 13th at 6 p.m. This meeting is adjourned at 7:23 p.m. All right.